I have always doubt about this Me Too movement. I have my specific reasons for that one. Like, everyone talks about, we cannot give any evidence because that happened at that time. It's a very long time and we cannot do anything. But, we have to think the other side of the coin also, where, the people are, or the women or whoever is have been affected with this. They are just coming on the social media and just putting an allegation. But what is the impact of that allegation? Okay, it has not been verified. The other person may not have responded, but because of the social media and the media which is already there, the TV media, they have been taking it to a level where media trials have been happening, where even the person has not responded, or maybe he's taking some time, or maybe he's looking for some legal option which he can take for whatever reason, but without even giving him an option so that he can respond. The media trial happens and they keep on starting that okay, he is the person who is guilty and he is declared as a perpetrator and his image is tarnished, so that now he cannot work in the society. Now before even the Kasab, you say, he was a terrorist, he was declared as a terrorist, he was caught by our army, but he was still given a fair chance to represent himself. Even the Supreme Court of India has appointed lawyers for him, so that he has been given fair chance. But if you are not giving a fair chance to a man, where by default, if you think about saying that all men are guilty and all men are having that issues, then it has become a gender war, where it has become man versus woman, and the society will not work only with one gender. If the society has to go, we have to have both genders. Both genders cannot be equal. God has not created genders as equal. Okay, there are some privileges which have been given to a man and some privileges which have been given to a woman. Now, you cannot say that because I am a woman and I have a privilege to give birth, I am equal to the man, right? So you have some privileges which have been given to a woman, where man will not come and compete because you are able to give a birth. I will go and give a birth next time. They are not competing. We are not here to do competition with genders. We are here to have a mutual society where we both are to be survived and live together, right? So we cannot make it as a gender war. And another thing, what happens is everyone talks about there are so many cases or so many statistics which are available where women have been harassed. Now, how many organizations are there who are collecting the data about how many men are harassed? How many laws are available for the men which says that if a man is having a problem with any woman, let it be a domestic violence, let it be a sexual harassment or any other harassment, how many IPC sections are available in the constitution which allows the man to go and file a case against a woman? There are not even a single case. Even the laws which are domestic violence law is not a gender neutral law. Rape laws are not gender neutral law. When there is no data which is being collected, how will the statistics will be available where you can differentiate or find out whether man is having an issue or not? Nobody talks about the issue of a man. Everyone is concerned about the woman. There is no single organization. There is no organization which is available for a man. There is no Purush Ayog. There is no men's organization or men's NGO which is available. All are women NGOs. We have a women and child development which from the government, where they are taking initiatives. They have the funding from the government. They are the one who are spending money. They are going to villages there and everything. So many programs are being done. What is being done for a man? Nothing. He has been just used as an ATM machine and he is having all responsibilities. So when there is a woman, she is having a responsibility also. She cannot just claim always the right, saying that I have this right, I have that right. She, as an equal partner in a society, has some responsibilities which she has to do, and she has some rights.
I can't speak for like the laws of India or not because I'm not from here. Yeah, it's okay. But there are a few things in what you said that I feel like I have to respond. It's just when you said that when a woman posts online onto social media, at that point the man has no chance of a fair battle. But I would say that nowhere in life is it fair between the woman and the man because of the societies that we find ourselves in. I would say even if you go to America, to Europe, to Africa, to anywhere, you will find that society is more often than not a patriarchal one. And just in that term, I don't think there is fairness. in our work, in anywhere in the world. I don't know, so I can't, and I think I was also going to respond to what you said before, where you have an issue where you were getting responses saying that men were talking to you on your social media, or that people were talking to you like, what about men? Like, what about them? And when you were saying it, it just came more clearly in my mind that you always find that when a marginalized group of people are creating a movement to strive for something, to strive for respect, to strive for just general acceptance in this world, that you find the other group who is threatened, who now find themselves in a position where they're being threatened, where they try to take the movement and make it about them. In the Black Lives Matter movement, you saw that happen with police officers, you saw that happen with white people. And in here, when I hear a man saying, what about men? What about all the men that have been assaulted, molested, raped? Well, I feel for them too. But this is not the movement for that. This is the movement for women. If men want to create a movement alongside that in a way that is respectful and isn't trying to take over the voice and take over the narrative, then I have no problem with that. But when men come into the space for women and say, well, what about me? Life isn't fair right now. Well, life hasn't been fair for women ever. And that's just continuously has been proven in history. So that is just my response to that. Someone take this.
Standing in a very privileged position in the society, and you're judging all the women and men out there, because recently I was having the same discussion with my mother, and she told me, where is the evidence for you to prove that the woman is right or wrong? And I told her, it's simple. You're standing at a very privileged position and you know that nobody can do anything of you. Like, for example, I'll give you a recent example. My boss was involved in a car accident and it was a pretty bad one. So the person, actually he rammed into a bike and 3 people were injured there, and it was very serious for the 3 people, and my only question was, how is my boss? And my colleagues actually explained it to me. You're supposed to be worried about the other 3 people than your boss, because for me, he's my boss. Obviously, for me, he'll be right. No matter what he does, he has to give me money at the end of the day, and I have to see him as an ATM machine. And for me, it's like, yes, he has to be fine. What about the other 3? And it was pretty bad. So I feel you're standing in my place where I look up to my boss, and you're like, okay, so maybe all the women are accusing men, or allegations are there on them, that they're, you know, putting them in the wrong place or something. But sometimes you need to empathize and also look through the other person's lens, because they have to go through a lot to come out, and not always everybody is open to come out. So I think the other perspective is also needed.
Protect men from sexual harassment. I think I would blame largely on the patriarchal structure, which sees men as sexual predators and women as passive, receivers of whatever treatment is done. That being said, I also would like to point out that Metoo movement was not about pointing out who are the victims, who are the predators, and put them into a jail. It was to say that this happens to everybody, and this is high time we talk about it. So it's not exactly a gender war. It's just, talking about our lived experience.
The last year, there was this International Day Against Gender-Based Violence. I think with that day, I got introduced to this Metoo movement, familiarized with what it is, and I read about it, and later I also got to work with an NGO involved with child trafficking and child marriages. I've been working for the last 17, 18 years in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh. And through an international collaborator, Thu Oct, another NGO, I got to design a questionnaire and implement a baseline survey on a select pilot few industries, mostly Indo-Dutch companies located in Hyderabad. And what is the issues relating to gender-based violence and safety of workplace for women. That was the topic, and we administered it to people from the HR department and about the people working there. You will find that still the participation rates, work participation rates are very low. Even in companies, IT companies and you don't find more than 20% of the people working there being women. Most of them are men organizations. And part of their being in the being a part of the population, almost equal in number to men. But when it comes to employment or education, they are still very much lagging behind compared to the opportunities that men have been having. Then later I was involved in documenting a business case of CSR involvement in companies involved with secondary education and job-oriented vocational training. These are things like getting into education and getting into employment can deter or prevent the occurrence of child marriages and trafficking. So with that in perspective, we were seeing whether what exactly are people really investing in the thing. So there was one organization we found in Hyderabad. They were supported about 25 government schools by doing various things like equipping them with a computer laboratory or making separate toilets for girls. They said that just by making separate toilets for girls, the participation rate of students went up, girl students going to the school went up from 20 to 50%. So if something just like making a toilet itself can make that kind of a change, you can imagine how pathetic the situation is. Because I think earlier days, we got introduced in my youth or my younger days, we were looking at readings of people like Simone de Beauvoir and later people like Andrea Dworkin, particularly from the perspective towards the male as a gender and its conduct, and particularly issues such as rape. It's very much, see the evolution by left to himself, a man is a very threatening creature to a woman. And the ability to surely like out of instinct behave or act out of his mind or act out of his sexual drive, which is more dominant in the behavior of the man. That's something which is quite a, and it is not really altered over time and still men are a big threat to women. And it cannot be denied that they continue to be. And there is very little progress in overcoming that threat, realization of the freedom for women, the emancipation from the slavery. In Indian context, I looked at Savitribai Phule. She was the lady who led the movement.
Been privy to a lot of women who have not only lost their jobs for speaking up, but they couldn't find another job also because it is a fairly close circle as we're talking about in any group, where the peer group kind of exchanges information. So if a woman has spoken out against her boss, the word quite quickly spreads around. And I don't think it's that easy for her to get another job. This is from my experience that I have noted and which have been shared with me. And now I thought we should also spend a little time on solutions. How should we move forward in this very, very complex maze, I think we need, my own thoughts on this would be that we need a slew of socio-cultural measures. We need to just change people's mindset. And I think one way that we really need to start is raising awareness on how we bring up the boy child. I think this whole aggression, this whole entitlement business starts with the way we raise the boy child, and India particularly really needs to, look at this whole thing about child raising, which is the mother has internalized cultural values of the patriarchal society, and they passed on to the boy who's from childhood. There's total differentiation and a very uneven field between the girl and the girl if she happens to be in the family and a boy growing up. So I think we really have to start at very fundamental levels of this.
Male and female. It's the only question about the culprit has to be punished. Whether it's male or female, we need to strengthen our laws first. And we have a good technology. A person who make other person trouble, we have to caught red-handed. That's it. And the laws should be very strengthened, like ST/SC Atrocity Act. And the person who is the culprit and who is the sufferer, the law should be maintained as a secrecy, and the punishment should be an instant. It is less than 36 hours like that. Then only anything will be success. I think we are giving the feeding to the news channels. That's it. everyone is coming and discussing on the news channels and then like a phone, their calls like that. But it is not a correct. We have to go by genuine, proper channel, like a police, with the proper evidence. Then only anything will be success. It's my opinion. I'm not hurting anyone. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for giving.
It was very true. It is actually very relevant about we Indians that we train our sons, especially the way we bring up. There is a lot of change. The way we think about our women. We don't see them as a human being next to us. We see them as a property. We feel them that we have some ownership. Be it a boy, as a brother, as an uncle, as father. We think we have some right to control them or subjugate them at some level. See, I am born in a family which I was actually brought up by a single parent, as a man, and I had an elder brother. I was actually abused as a child. But that story did not end there. I was constantly abused in a school because I am more like a feminine boy in a house, the chubby, feminine kind of kid. So it was, I was very vulnerable to classmates and my friends and the circle. This story did not end there. This actually turned into somewhere flipped, and slowly it has become a nature that when I started growing up, when I started exploring my sexuality and started entering into relationships, I understood that whatever I went through has come out in a very different aspect. I started being the bad guy. So I wanted to be the villain and I wanted to enjoy that domination. So that didn't end there. Every relationship that have been with me for some time, I always used to enjoy, we used to have some good times, and all that good things go to some level. And there this story begins, the way I try to subjugate that person, probably at the level of work or at the level of any other argumentative or any social issue or any other thing. It need not be only physical abuse, but this abuse has come into all the other aspects. If that lady can paint better than me, I have an issue. If she is more creative, then I have an issue. So this keeps, coming and repeating. It has become a second nature. It's not that I'm not trying to, say that, what should I say? So slowly I understood this point that this has become a second nature only when I saw my son, who is 5 years kid, who is a very friendly, a very feminine kid, again, very close with others. But suddenly when he comes to his mother, he is very demanding. This demand comes, in a very different way. Say, like, if she says no to him, he would just start, hitting her or, start, taking a stand, strong stand. But when it is with me, when he is with me, and if he asks me something, and I say no to it, the story ends there. The matter ends there, it closes there. But it is with mother, of course. He thinks that he has still a chance. So it is in our second nature. It is especially in our Indians, in our South Indians, in our Hyderabad people, Telugu people. You take any group, be it any group. I think men have it in their nature. It is bullying more than the sexual harassment or other things. It is the second nature of a man, to try to capture or dominate or to win something. Probably this might go when women become more stronger and they make, when they really show us our place, the way, some ladies in my life showed me my place. Especially, it came out very brutally, but it has come. There are many examples sitting in this group right now who have personally shouldered me when I was in pain, when I thought that I was broken, shattered and other things. But they felt, okay, now he's actually evolving. Probably I was evolving then. My friend next to me he has seen all those instances. He stood with me. He has travelled all the way. We have travelled across the South India, in order to chase a girl. But at the same time, we found ourselves. We found the way we have to think. And I thought that I am evolved and my son can be a very pro-woman person. But I don't think that is going to happen so easily. I think I have to constantly remind myself and him that we need to be more disciplined, more in control when we are in the company of a girl or a woman. Because the nature is always, taking shape in some way or the other. That's what, this is my opinion. I think Metoo is a very relevant movement. It's not about you pitching against another man, pitching against women. It's more about people coming up, sharing their stories, speaking, making it more aware. Right, let it be a social media movement, let it be an urban movement, but still, if the urban crowd is very strong about it and we start evolving, probably the semi-urbanites and others also keep joining. And I think this slow and simple movement should really stand and go a long way, so that we people really understand what we are, and we keep coming up with our stories. And probably it is a very personal movement, at the same time very social movement. Thank you.
That this happened with me. So they wanted other women, other people to empathize with them. They are not seeking for justice, or they don't really want their harassers to be punished, but they want the society to know they have been through this, and they want the society to empathize with them. And for me, in my opinion, this movement is of solidarity. It's just they are just seeking empathy from people that, okay, you've been through this, so let maybe come out with this and open and call out the people who are responsible. And coming out to the question, what steps we can take, I think it all boils down to consent. Sexual harassment won't happen if the person is asking for consent, and consent can only be taught at a very young age. As they said, children are brought up in a society where they see their mothers working as housewives, which is, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but they think that they have a power over them, and they can dominate them in some ways. So consent can be taught to children at a very young age, and taught them that you cannot cross your limits no matter what. You have to ask permission to the other person, and then only you can do something. And we can start this at a very young age. And when it comes to school, so when sex education is given in schools, it has to be very clear and very abundant in that state. This consent is really important no matter what. A yes is a yes, a no is a no. So everything boils down to consent for me. So yeah, that's it.
I don't think any movement which has a past history of oppression and a long history of oppression, which has its roots not only by a single word patriarchy, but it has its roots in a class divided society, how patriarchy has evolved. It cannot be subordinated to a legality framework, because in a society which is itself is divided into classes, which has all kind of power structures working, the legality will not do any kind of justice. Secondly, the notion of fairness, which people tend to come that because they don't have the historical understanding, they come to a point that everything is equal and one should have a fair and fair kind of ground for both people. I think when the best thing about this movement is at last we have a space where people are speaking up, and when there is a space, who has stopped men from speaking up about their exploitation or their oppression? Nobody is stopping men from speaking about their oppression. After that, if we see in a society like what Ayla told, that what should be the future of the movement? In my opinion, in a class divided society, when we are structurally hierarchical divisions are there, and we see that as we come down in the hierarchical structure, the oppression increases, the vulnerability among the women or anybody increases in the society. So in such a society, we see that those who are speaking up from a position where they are getting an environment to speak. Such environment such environment for people to speak up about their stories doesn't come through just by giving motivation to people. These environment comes through material condition in which people are living. Suppose if there is we all want that all kinds of maids, all like midwives, nurses, they go through a lot of exploitation in their working spaces. They all should also come up and speak, but it is their material condition which stops them. Suppose even if we motivate somebody like a maid, it is like a livelihood. It is like coming to an end of livelihood, maybe, and maybe she won't get a meal for the next day. Maybe she won't be able to feed her children. It is like to that extent of crisis is there. But for people who are coming from a position, it is easy. If they don't get a job somewhere where they have spoken up, they might get a job somewhere else. They can live without a salary for 3-4 months. So it is, no matter what we think, it has a class angle to it, and people who are speaking have a class position. I am not undermining their voices, I am not undermining their struggle, and we respect their voices, and but as we go ahead, we should see that there is some limitation, and this limitation is to reach it to the classes, across all the classes, which many of us agree to it. In order to that, I think we should not take a small route by just teaching people or letting people understand what it is. It is also correct, but we should take a longer route where there is a class struggle, where people are working among the women, working class women, the laborers who face the most brutalist form of exploitation. We can never imagine also what kind of brutal exploitation they undergo. That's all. Thank you.
I want to puntualize thinking. The Metoo is true, was needed. The problem is how it has been manipulated, as I understand. One thing is the movement born in the States as a solidarity movement, and how has been twisted, because today I've been talking with some people, and yesterday is like now in India. If you are a woman and you have not been abused, harassed or raped, you are not a woman. What is pathetic and very sad. I'm sorry. For me, I've been talking with some people, I've been asking different people in different ambience, and it's curious. It's like a Me Too, but you need to be Me Too. It's not Me Too solidarity, because it happens to you really. Need to be trending, and it's very sad to say. Second thing, Me Too solidarity and victims, we all, men and women, are victims of the other gender and the same gender. Because harassment and bullying exist, men to get men, and we know, women to get women, and I know, for different reasons. Jealousy, envy, whatever, insecurity, fear exists. And it's something we need to be very careful, because one thing is being victim of a rape, or a gun rape, or a real physical abuse, and another thing is the harassment and the bullying, and it's something happens daily. Other thing is you get the character to face it, to go ahead and to fight for who you are, and don't allow anyone control your life through fear. And for solution, she was talking about education, and it's true. In India we have a very big problem with that. First, sex education don't exist in the schools, not at all, at least not in the public schools. And the one is given is quite sad, and many people get bad sex education through porno movies. We need to be realistic. Second, there are parents thinking the education need to be given in the school. I'm sorry, the schools can give you a level of literacy, but not education. The values start at home. You cannot rely on the schools to teach value to your kids. Another problem we have in India, rape within marriage is not a rape. We need to fight to change that law. Because in India, you are married, you are property of your husband, he can do whatever he wants, you cannot go to the police. Someone was telling, you've been telling about go to the police, it's true. Go to the police in India is pathetic. I get a problem searching for house, I slap one man, I go to the police, and sadly he was a superintendent of police. And the police told me, if you are not happy in India, back to your country. Listen, I'm not telling I'm not happy in India. I'm telling that guy tried to abuse me. If he's a police, I don't care. But all of us, in a moment or another of our lives, have been through that. And the main important thing probably is, you've been talking about education, like you said, and educate the boys. Sorry, we need to educate both boys and girls. not only the boys. Because if we only fix and educate boys, we forget we are giving example to the daughters. And they are learning through our example. And the main problem probably in India, and we need to work on that, is if you have a partner, your partner reach home, drunk, however, he abuse you, then love you, and then hug you and kiss you, that kids are learning all that violence is the way to say I love you. We need to change that. If we as a women allow that, okay, we are the victims, but we are also responsible for what is happening to us. If we don't stop that change, that thing's never gonna change. We need to stop us for, if not for ourselves or the education we got, for the future generation, for our kids, teach them properly. If your father has done that, you need to learn this is not allowed.
You know, the solution and all, as much as we need to educate the boys and all of that, I think we as women need to know, at least I am talking from an organization where I come from, men really don't know what consent means. They tend to, exceed boundaries even when you tell them no or you're just dropping hints. I think, as women, we need to know when we are feeling uncomfortable and we need to actually draw a line there. Because I have been at that receiving end, because recently I had a colleague texting me constantly and I didn't even know who he was. I was trying to push him off, but then he wouldn't understand that I did not want to talk to him. And it took me a really long message to tell him that, see, I'm not interested in talking to you. So I think people need to understand, draw boundaries for men and women. Both of them need to understand that the opposite person is uncomfortable. So I think I need to stop at something. And I got a message recently from my other colleague saying, I want to marry you and I'm coming with my parents to your house, which is, I'm okay. But dude, you need to ask me first. My parents are later. I should be interested in you, not my parents. And I think it just slipped his mind, or I don't think he even considered me as a person to ask or take permission from, first of all. So I think first we need to educate men on that, and then later women need to understand that this person is crossing his line, because most of the people in my profession, at least, they're so docile that I don't think they would identify it as not taking consent. They would maybe think of it as something like he's hitting on me, or maybe I'm too precious for the world or something. So I think they need to be made more aware.
Not pointing anyone who is saying what, so it's their opinion where they have every right to present and have a dissent with that one if I'm something which I'm speaking which is they think that it may not be the case. So if you see that the woman has evolved from a very, like if you see the 19th century where woman was not allowed to go outside, and to this 21st century where woman is at every place. They have been a privilege where the woman is there in the Supreme Court, they have been raised to the high top mountain, they have been there to the NASA or every other place. So woman is having their own privilege and they are going forward in this movement, right? So they are growing day by day. It's not that every woman is there, but most of the women are now being educated. We have so many programs which are run by a government like Beti Bachao and many others. There have been many places where woman is getting educated. If you see in every family, I don't think now there is a discrimination against a male child and a female child. If you see in urban areas where every child is being sent to the school, irrespective of what is the income of a father or a parent or whatever it is, they are going to schools. They are there in every place. So it's not that you can say that a woman is the child is being treated indifferently because of the gender. Okay, there have been education given to the child and to the male child as well as to the female child. As of now, I don't see any place where in very rural areas where the education is not so applicable. Otherwise, everywhere you have children who are going to these schools. Now, who are the children? Like if you say about a male child, who is this male child? He is coming from a woman. Okay, and it's a part of a woman, and by being brought up by a woman, most of the if you see in India or any other places, if you see in the entire world, all the child custody cases or all the cases which are there, where there is a child which is involved in a legal battle, most of the child are being given to a woman for the upliftment of the child, right? So woman is considered as to bring up a child irrespective of the gender. a father is not given the privilege of a custody when there is child, and after 18 years there is no child custody case because he becomes an adult, right? So child is brought up by a woman. Now again, where it's one side there's a woman who keeps on saying that there is a patriarchal society where the child is being brought up by a woman. Most of the time it is the child is there in the home where it is brought up by a woman. And again, we call it about a patriarchal society. I don't understand what it is, because most of the time the children are with the mother at home and they are being brought up.
To stand up and identify yourself and speak about the Metoo movement. So a lot of credit goes for everybody. I think as a society, we need to take up responsibility to stand up for people who are struggling. I'm sure there are a lot of people like domestic workers, or there was a post I saw on Facebook what happened about Metoo movement when Dalits were going through. Nobody spoke against them and fought for them. So I think we need to, as a community, need to stand up for people who might be struggling, for people who don't have social media access and people who are speaking out. I think we need people. I think people need people to stand up for them. One thing I also feel is I hope this moment doesn't become a joke too, because there will be cases where people will end up and shouldn't be taking revenge, a breakup revenge or those kind of issues. It's something, if anybody notices, I think somebody should stand up and correct those issues too, because if women are standing up for wrong, they should also stand up for right. Also goes to men too, vice versa. And I also am a little concerned, even there's so much of movement going on in the city, I hope men shouldn't get scared talking to girls, even if they really like them. So somewhere that thin line should be maintained where the romance part, the love part shouldn't get affected. But overall, I'm glad people are talking. It should help the community. Thank you.
That this movement, I believe that it's organized, yet disorganized. It's organized in the way that, let's say if I'm a girl and if I want to come out about the experience I had. So it gives me a platform, and like she said that it makes sure that I will have some people who empathize with me. But at the same time it is disorganized because, there aren't, how do I make sure that, I get justice? It puts a partial closure at least to my past, but not completely. I can be sure of, of getting justice about what happened with me. So that's what I feel about its nature. So apart from that, it's also disorganized because its reach is limited to people who have access to internet. It doesn't have the reach to women, especially who do not have access to Facebook or such things. So the people who are people who empathize with this movement, not the people who think that there is no patriarchy in India, but the people who think that India is still patriarchal and it's going to be so for the long time. So they need to think about this as well. How can we, reach out to women across classes, across castes, so that they aren't just left out. So I think without including those huge number of women with us, there isn't going to be a real movement as such. Otherwise, it will just remain confined to internet. So that's my point. Thank you.
Why do we actually understand few basics before even getting into whether Metoo movement will definitely do that difference or not? So if somebody can speak about, as he was rightly saying, where do we or how do we understand what is consent? So, or what do you call something as consent and what is not consent, please?
Sexual empowerment education team, and as the way we the concept of consent for us, we said it was verbal, so you have to say yes. Continuous, exactly what Indira exposed right now is that I say yes now, but I have my right to say no in 10 seconds if I want so. Verbal, continuous, non-coercive, so it can be coerced, I can be forced to do so. So it has to be from my will, and I can change it anytime. Enthusiastic, so it has to be something that I want to do. and something that I seem excited to do. So it comes a lot from the interpretation that the person who's asking consent to. If I say yes, but I don't seem like I want to do so, it comes from the other person to realize that like maybe I shouldn't do this.
Right. So the people that are privileged enough to be accessing internet and having social media where they can see about, like where they can like access, they can share their experiences, they can empathize and all of that. And then from there, because there was no there was, but not really a solid platform for that, and now there is. So that platform started from those privileged people that can access it, and from there it can branch on to like people that cannot access it, but can still be involved.
Story, and then a journalist saw her story and she called her, and then they got through her, and that's how they got in touch with her. So she got her support. So I think social media in that sense is helping people who are coming out with the stories with
vocal about it. So to a certain extent celebrities are coming out, journalists are coming out, different people are coming out. How about those people who post it? They are at the heat of posting or sharing those stories, and probably somebody who has power can face the repercussions of it and still stand. And how about the one who doesn't have power? And is it because now it's happening in a larger scale, on a larger scale, so it's now like, even though women are coming out individually, but that has a momentum going. So how about somebody who don't have that power after this particular moment, and where do they stand after this?
Thank you so much. It has been an overwhelming response. Thank you all for coming here today to discuss an issue that is so close to all of our lives, and definitely to my heart because of my own experiences. There are a lot of questions that have been raised today that we were not able to answer. So we at Lamakaan would really like to open up this conversation, have more events on how to make our cities, our villages, our homes safer for women, and we will keep you posted on our website and our Facebook page as well. If any of you would also like to individually network with each other and see if there's something to do, come to me if there's something I can do. This place is open for another 15 minutes only today, but we can always stay in touch, and so much strength comes through solidarity. So thank you all of you for coming out here and saying what you did. Thank you so much and have a good night.